Good morning, everybody. We have the one and only Dave Ramaley here. Dr. Ramaley of Seattle Natural Health has been dealing with my Wi-Fi issues all morning, so we should all give him a round of applause because if it's not the producer, it's the rural Wi-Fi. And Dave, as you know, I was a little concerned. We're going to talk about it in a second. We're going to talk about this thing on my roof, and just in general, the EMF issue of how our cell phones affect our health. But that is down the road. And I thought we could talk about it anyway, since it was an issue that you and I were dealing with this morning because I had to delay the live stream because of it. But the main topic we're going to get into today is chronic disease and COVID. And I've had you on the channel a couple of times talking about this, even last year, back when this whole thing began. And it was pretty clear early on that it was having a disproportionate effect on people who have a chronic disease. Say asthma, for instance, or obesity. I don't know. Do we consider obesity a chronic disease?
Yes.
Okay. So, so that this, is an effect, and then yet at the same time, it feels like there's been sort of a pressure to, at least I can say this on the tech platforms, that when you start talking about like the natural alternatives to, necessarily being put on, like waiting till it gets so bad that you're now put on a ventilator, which of course also became something that doctors were questioning at the beginning. I just know that like people like Dr. Brownstein have been targeted by the Federal Trade Commission for even like talking about their alternative treatments, just the stuff that they were using. And I don't even want to call it alternative because I don't even know what it's alternative to, other than, it was a new virus that had come out that people were finding new ways to deal with. And really a lot of it came to supporting the immune system and keeping people healthy so that their bodies could do the work. That's what you specialize in. So I'm having you back just to kind of talk about this. Now we're a year past the original COVID mystery when we all started hearing about it for the first time. And, we could talk about lessons learned, what you're seeing in your practice. And I really want to just start with what you do, because your kind of specialty focuses in a lot of ways more than sort of what a traditional, or what would you call the conventional MD, like the guy, the medical doctor there. I feel like, having been raised by two, tend to be focused more on what we would call battlefield medicine. And your specialty focuses, I think, a lot more on chronic problems. That's just my read, but I'm going to give you the chance to explain to people who you are and what you do. So take it away.
All right. So I'm a naturopath and a chiropractor. As a naturopath, we can do pretty much whatever a medical doctor can do. So we can prescribe most medications, narcotics we cannot, but antibiotics, all those other things we can do. We don't do major surgery, but pretty much anything that you would think of to go see your primary care provider for, that's what we would do. The difference is we tend to use more herbs, nutrition, lifestyle management, as opposed to a pharmaceutical approach. So it doesn't mean that all pharmaceuticals are bad, but it's like if we can find another way to actually help someone change their life so they can improve their overall health, their energy, that is our focus. And the education is very similar to like what a medical doctor would get. We just tend to focus a lot more on, like I said, nutrition, lifestyle, herbs, as opposed to just a pharmaceutical approach.
Okay, so bringing up, I just found this, and I'll take let me share my screen here. So this came out a few days ago. 44% of older millennials, which I am, already have a chronic health condition. Here's what that means for their futures. The first question I had when I was reading this is this worse than it used to be? Are chronic diseases increasing in rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. Let's just take this back. Those are millennials, but let's even take it back to children, which I know we're not necessarily discussing about per se with COVID. But in 1960, 1.2% of children had a chronic disease. A couple of years ago, the latest statistic is close to 50% of children in the United States are living with a chronic disease. So what happened in those last 50 or 60 years? We went from basically 1% to 50%. And that's just a reflection of the greater society, whether someone is elderly, a millennial, whatever their age group is, that is what we're seeing throughout the whole country. And I would even say the whole world, actually, but the United States is definitely the leader in that. Now, it's interesting when you're looking at COVID and who are the people who are actually getting sick and needing to go to the hospital or who are dying from it. In Italy, if you remember that whole thing when it was going out, most of that was in Lombardy. And when the Italians basically came out afterwards, their version of our National Institute of Health did a study and looked at all the people who had died of COVID. And they said only 6% of the people who had actually died had no other, like what they call a comorbidity or a chronic disease. But easily over half the people were living with at least 3 or more chronic diseases. And that was very similar to the United States as well. So really that chronic disease has a big impact on how people are going to survive or even have to go to the hospital.
Has there been anything that's changed with testing for chronic diseases? Because would somebody say, yeah, but we just test more? Like, so they have, or we categorize differently, so people have more chronic disease, or is it been consistent over time, so the numbers are apples to apples?
Oh, I think it's apples to apples. I mean, clearly testing has changed, from 50, 60 years ago, but whether you have diabetes or not has not changed. I mean, there are things that just don't change. Someone has it or they don't. So I think that's pretty well vetted that the numbers are real, and maybe how we're managing is different, but the numbers are there.
Dave, so many initials after his name. I am confused. Can you tell us about run us through real fast
Yeah.
Okay.
All the initials. Okay, I
Yeah.
won't bore you. ND is for naturopathic doctor. DC is for Doctor of Chiropractic, and that nice 5 initial one, that D, A, C, and B, is for basically I have a diplomate in chiropractic neurology.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So we specialize in a lot of neurological cases, some very difficult chronic ones, as well as seeing a lot of people for digestive issues. And we've probably seen, not in our office, but doing telemedicine, probably 30 or 40 people who have also had COVID.
Okay. What's it been like? And actually, we could go on to that real fast if you want, what it's been like treating people with COVID. But also, Flynn asks, what are the top 3 chronic diseases?
That I treat or in the country?
How about
Well,
both?
I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't give you a statistical breakdown in our office. I could tell right now it's going to be heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. Those would be the top 3 in the country. I mean, I can maybe be off by
Is
one, but
obesity and hypertension, are they kind of related, or they're
they're actually
hypertension?
separate diagnoses.
Interesting. Okay. And
But
so
yes,
you,
they're going to be related, but they are separate diagnoses.
okay. So let's talk about obesity for example. What, now that we're sort of a year past or so from the initial, like, and we did the video right when we had these first cases come out of your area, basically in Seattle, where I used to live, which is how you and I know each other. Are you surprised at how much of an effect that has on what we've seen for people who have had more severe symptoms, or is that exactly what you expected? I mean, now that we kind of have some perspective on it.
Well, no, it doesn't surprise me at all, because obesity would be true for anything, whether it's cancer, heart disease, hypertension, osteoarthritis. Anyone who is obese is just going to have a greater chance of developing those diseases. But I'm going to put that in a context to just say, hey, you're obese, you're fat, you're going to get sick. I don't think it's that simple, because I see plenty of people who are thin also who have numerous chronic diseases. And so I don't want to just, kind of label that as an entity, as a separate thing. The one thing about the obesity, though, is that it's, the people who I see are obese, everybody thinks, so they're just sitting there eating a ton of food all day long. And granted, that may be some people. I see some thin people who do the exact same thing. But really, I think obesity is more a sign of it's really a disease of energy. There's this great professor, his name is Doug Wallace, very famous. I think he got a Nobel Prize for looking at mitochondria and disease. So his whole specialty, very cool. If you're going to watch him, he has some great lectures, just for the general public. His thesis, which I think is right on, is 80% of all disease is because of poor mitochondria function. What are the mitochondria? They are cells in our body that produce energy. That's how we live. If you ever seen those movies where someone takes cyanide and then they're dead like in 15 seconds, what that cyanide is doing is literally shutting down their mitochondria. So you just end up by dying. And so they know with obesity, people have poor mitochondria function, and that would be true for all diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So what basically slows down our mitochondria? Toxins, poor diet, lack of outside light. Light has a huge, huge change. That's what we're going to get to, I hope, in a little bit later, Allison. But light is huge for producing energy in our body, and obviously exercise. But I can see people who are very thin, and they can have the same chronic diseases as someone who is obese. So to answer your question, if someone is obese, therefore they're going to get sick. As a naturopath, I take a step back and say, why are they obese? Because they may not even be eating that much. It's because of their gut microbiome, their bacteria. It's because of toxins in our environment. It's because of the light. It's because of EMF. So there's a lot of things in our environment that are affecting that. So I just wanted to put that a little bit in a context of what we talk about obesity.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the light issue related to the lockdowns. And like in some places there are curfews, and and I don't know. I mean, maybe those are at night, so I'm not sure. Does it matter from the light perspective? But it does seem that it was a little odd that we were closing down parks and places where people could be outside if being outside is better for your health and perhaps even less dangerous than being inside when it comes to, spreading disease. I'm just curious, like now sort of again, hindsight 2020 on all of that. What do you have any thoughts on sort of the everybody kind of being sequestered in their houses and locked down and not being outdoors as often?
Right. Yeah. I won't comment on the decisions made at that time, whether it was good or bad, but let's let your listeners decide what they think. And I want to put light. So let me go back to light. If I go on tangents here, Allison, bring me back in. But I love to talk about light. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But let me talk about why light is so important to us. Humans have been on the face, 100, 200,000 years. And we live in light. It's only been really until like probably the last 100 years that we've started sequestering ourselves in buildings and looking at LED lights, computer screens, all these different things. But think about light. So this is what Doug Wallace actually talked about, how important light is also. But you're going to notice that we're both wearing our blue blocking glasses right now, right? So I'm blocking out the blue light. I have this thing called flux on my computer screen right now. But in your eye, this is so cool. In your eye, you have a receptor that has nothing to do with vision. All it does is it absorbs light. And when it sees that light coming in, it goes through your brain up to a part of your brain called the hypothalamus. And that is what controls all of your hormones, how you eat, what's happening. But not only that, when that light goes into there, that light is transmitted, and guess where it goes to? Your gut microbiome. It goes right to the bacteria. So when you're outside getting light, it's not only that we're getting the light, it's like it's sending this information to our own bacteria in our gut. And then there was this very cool German physicist, his name is Fritz Popp. Brilliant guy, you should read his work. It's Fritz, F-R-I-T-Z, and then Popp. And he basically showed that your gut microbiome, the bacteria in there, emit 5,000 times more light than a human cell. So we don't think in those terms. We just think, hey, our gut bacteria, we really need that. But we don't realize that our gut bacteria it's the messenger to our entire system. It is emitting light, and all energy is light. All energy is light. So when our bacteria are emitting this light, when we go outside, it's making our mitochondria work. It's helping with our immune system. And I'm going to do a little plug here. I wrote a book called Perpetual Energy.
Yes.
So you don't have to plug right now, Allison. That's okay if we do it. But in there, I talk about light, and this is why it's so important. We also, in every single cell in our body, we have something called the clock gene, and every cell depends on light. And so even your immune system needs light. So if you're looking at like macrophages, monocytes, all these different kinds of immune system indicators in your body that help you fight off infection, every single one of those cells has a clock gene on it. So when you go outside, it is synchronizing your body with the world that we have been living with for the last 200,000 years. When I'm sitting in a room at a computer screen and I have LED lights on and I never go outside, do you realize that for the average American goes outside less than 3% a day? And that's including the time in your car looking out a window, which doesn't even count. So I see it all the time. we don't go outside. And it is literally shutting down our mitochondria. It's slowing down our energy. It's messing up our sleep cycle. And it is definitely messing up our immune system. A clear change in that. So we got to find ways to shut down this LED light. And there's some really simple things you can do. It's like one of the easiest things that if someone wanted to modify in their life, they can do. And they know in studies that if you go outside for even 2 to 3 minutes, we're not talking about hours, 2 to 3 minutes, your eye is going to pick up on that light and it's going to resynchronize your body to that outside light. So I tell people, go outside every hour, and I don't even care if it's for 2 minutes. Don't wear any glasses. Just go out. It doesn't have to be looking at the sun. It doesn't matter. You can be in the shade.
And don't stare at your cell phone when you go outside.
What's that?
Don't stare at your cell phone when you go outside.
Exactly. So I got a little too excited there. But you will see profound changes in sleep cycles and immune health. And so here's the other thing. You go into a hospital. What happens when you get in a hospital bed? What are you looking up at?
Blue light.
Blue light, a blaring fluorescent light. What are you hooked up to? And I'm not criticizing hospitals. Like this is not a critique of hospitals. I'm just saying when you go into you're looking at blue light all day long. You're not going to have any windows. You're hooked up to every single device that is on Bluetooth. There's nothing's really wired anymore. And again, it's, I'm not discussing, I'm just saying when you're sitting in a hospital bed, you're getting a major amount of EMF. You get no outside light and you're being exposed to blue light almost 24/7. That does not sound like a good way to recover. So you need to get outside.
My dad tells a story about back when he was in residency decades ago, and his buddy Art Brownstein, who later wrote a book called Healing Back Pain Naturally, though he lost his practice originally because he would spend an hour with his patients, and his office manager said, we're not going to be able to stay open if you don't start seeing more patients and faster. But he lives in Hawaii now and he's doing just fine thanks to his book. But my dad remembers the story of having a very sick patient, and I guess this was back in the day when you could actually open your hospital room window. Apparently there was actually an era when you could open windows in hospitals, and this guy was kind of a mystery case. He was sickly, looked sickly, but nobody could really figure out what was going on with him. And Art, because he had originally been addicted to painkillers for his back, which is why he wrote the book Healing Back Pain Naturally, had spent a year or so in India learning different techniques. And this guy's an orthopedic surgeon. I mean, that's what my dad does, and that's what they're in residency for. So he just said, dude, you need some sunlight. So he just pushed the guy to the window and let the guy sit there. And they said that he had a dramatic change even just within a day or two. It didn't cure everything, but that he was doing a lot better. And my dad always just said, like, he was just way before his time talking about that stuff, in the early 80s or late 70s. But that now, like what you're saying, is becoming more and more apparent that that's really important, though at the same time we're being told the sun is terrible, stay inside, constantly wear chemical sunscreens and protect yourself from that. And so I think people get mixed messages and are just like terrified of the sun now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. So what I always tell people, it doesn't even matter. So yes, you want to get sun, and there's ways in the book I talk about how to get sun appropriately. I agree. Do not sunburn. Just if you just want to get some sun on your arms and legs, that's great. Granted, I'm in Seattle, right? So here's another gray day. So we want to go out and get that sun. But the other thing is like, even this is the whole point of going outside. So right now it's a crappy gray day in Seattle. It's going to probably rain, probably elsewhere in the country it's nice and sunny, but here it's gray. It doesn't matter, because when I go outside, even my eye will pick up that I am in a low, what I call ultraviolet light. So we're not getting a lot of ultraviolet light from the sun. It's dark, it's gray, it's going to probably rain. It doesn't matter. That message is still going into my eye, it's going into my skin, and it's telling my immune system, you're in a low ultraviolet light environment. I'm not getting much sunlight. So my gut microbiome will shift itself to that. My immune system will change itself. It's just a message. So now your immune system says, okay, we're not getting a lot of vitamin D. These things aren't happening. So let's shift things so we can protect ourselves. So it isn't like everybody even needs to go out in the sun, although that is a very healthy thing to do. But even if you're in a dark gray area, it doesn't matter. You're just trying to send the message to your body about what's happening. And our bodies are amazing. They will adapt. They'll take that information and they'll start shifting things around so we can live a healthy life.
So to go back to the chronic disease issue here, and I'm going to show this screen again. So it looks like the leading causes of death and disability and leading drivers of the nation's $3.8 trillion in annual healthcare costs. This is, again, CDC. Heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, chronic kidney disease. So that's what they're saying nationwide. When you're treating your patients, or like if we talk specifically about, well, let's say generally speaking, okay, generally speaking in your practice, the folks that are coming in for treatment with COVID, do they have chronic diseases, or like did you see more who were struggling with a chronic disease? Like what just from your own on the ground practice, what were people dealing with the most that came in with symptoms or nothing? I don't know, maybe they had nothing.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure it's very clear they weren't in our office. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, yes.
If they have COVID, we cannot let them in. I just want to make sure everybody knows we're following the CDC and the Washington Department of Health guidelines.
Okay.
We're following it to a T, and I want to just make sure it's very clear. This is all done by telemedicine.
Okay, where can you go? So you either have to go to the emergency room, or like where is a COVID patient allowed to go?
A lot of times it's done through telemedicine unless they have to go to the hospital. Then that's where they would go.
Okay.
But I've been seeing these people. These are patients who I've been seeing for years, so I understand their history. They know me. It's not an issue. Out of all the ones that I know of, only one had to go to the hospital. And some of these people are in their 80s with a number of chronic conditions. And so some were varied. Some were actually being treated by other doctors. I was co-managing some of it. Some took some more of the what we'd call controversial things like hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. Some we just did using vitamin D, vitamin A, some different herbs. And some became quite ill. They were sick for a few weeks, and some are still kind of recovering. Some of them had a stuffy nose for a day and they were fine. And I would say definitely the people who are younger and healthy, some didn't even know they had it. They just tested positive. And some maybe had, like I said, for a day or two. And the people who get older, who have some chronic diseases, it took longer. It may take a few days up to a week or two. But they all took it seriously, and we treated them, with either pharmaceuticals or just doing herbs and nutrition.
All right. I want to get to some questions if we have any. What about spinal health and collapsing into our chairs? People can't even sweep their eyes up and back across the ceiling, so collapsed are their chests. This is way too simplistic to suggest. I don't know where it goes after that, but you are a chiropractor. So how does how does our spine or posture, is there anything neuromuscularly related to health, chronic disease, and whatnot?
Absolutely. You can actually, it's possible. When I was doing this diplomate chiropractic neurology program, is pretty cool. You can do what's called like VO2 testing. You can see like how much oxygen someone can bring in or how much they can expel. And so we did some very sophisticated testing on looking at pulmonary function. Then we did a chiropractic adjustment on someone and went back and did the exact same test. And we found out that they were able to carry more oxygen, that they were actually able to breathe in and out better after an adjustment. So yes, I think posture has a huge thing to do with that. In some of the other studies, when they show that chiropractors have done manipulation, they can actually see an increase in white blood cell activity. So it means that they're even affecting their immune system. So I would say, yes, I think posture, I don't want to say a poor posture would lead to someone's susceptibility to COVID or or have an influence on whether they'd be going to the hospital or not. But in a general sense, I would say that posture would be huge for that, because they're going to be able to get more oxygen in. And if you're just sitting around all day, right, we're not going to get a whole lot more energy in our body.
Yeah, true. Okay, hot yoga is self-chiropractor. Well, I will say I do practice hot yoga once a week. I do Bikram once a week, and I have for about 10 years. And I really do think it has changed my health. And at least this, I don't know how, but I can tell if I don't do it now. Whereas before I started doing it, I never noticed how my spine or my muscles felt. Like I almost can feel the gravity of, Earth's gravity changing my body somehow. I don't know if that's what it is, but I just know that if I go a week or two without doing it, now I can actually feel a difference. Whereas before it was just the way I lived, there wasn't really, so it's almost like until you get healthy, you don't really know what it was like being sick. But I'm curious like some other tricks for the trade, as long as we have you here, that people can do that would be helpful. We talked about light. I'm sure, obviously, I don't know if we've touched on diet specifically yet, but you did talk a lot about microbiome. Anything else on that line of just exercise types of practice or anything else you want to talk about, Dave?
Yeah. So I would very simply, I would say, you mentioned about sitting. The other person mentioned about sitting in a chair all day. I tell people every 20 minutes, put your timer on and get up from your chair for 30 seconds. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you want to go to the bathroom, whether you want to get up, get a glass of water, just do a few deep knee bends. But trying to get up every 20 minutes is so important. It will help with your back and with your health. And if you can get a standing desk, that's even better. Sit and stand throughout the day. That makes a huge difference for your back, for your energy, and for your overall health as well. I did want to mention one thing about water, because I know she mentioned about hot yoga. So yeah, you're drinking your water. So first thing, here's this very cool thing. I'm going to do a little segue into another test that people can use, which they may find very interesting. Dr. Pollack at the University of Washington basically discovered what is called structured water. So in our body, and this is going to go back to the hot yoga, in our body, we have a thing called intracellular water and extracellular water. So the water inside your cell is called structured water, which is different than what's outside of your cell. And so what happens when you sprain your ankle, you see your ankle swell up, that's extracellular. That's kind of like lymph and things like that. Where really the real key is what's happening inside the cell. Or do you have that structured water? And so the way that structured water is making, it's different than what we call bulk water. So what you get out of your tap or even from a stream is not exactly structured water. Your body has a way to get that into the cell, and it's more like a gel. Just not even looks like water, it's more of gel-like, and it has a different property. But one of the things to make this structured water, and when you have the structured water, your mitochondria will function much better. But the way you make structured water in your own body, that's a whole nother topic we could do about how to find structured water. But how you can make structured water in your body is by, guess what? Light. But that light also includes infrared. What is hot yoga? You're picking up a ton of infrared light from just the heat. And that in itself is going to make structured water in your cell and make you function better. What's the other thing that helps with structured water? Exercise. So you're doing hot yoga, you're stretching, you're doing some hard work, you're doing Bikram yoga, you're actually exerting yourself, right? So just by the exercise alone is going to make structured water inside of your cells as well. That's going to have a dramatic difference. And I just want to throw something, if you have access to this, it's very cool. You asked about COVID. I would love to do an experiment. Maybe we could get an NIH or CDC grant. We have a machine called a bioimpedance machine. And I think we may have talked about it in I think we have a YouTube video on it, or may have talked about it.
I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up. But continue, and then I'll show it.
A bioimpedance machine is really cool because it measures your vitality. It does other things. It says like how much fat you have and things like that. But it measures something that's totally key. It's called your phase angle. A phase angle, basically, either someone's going to put like these pads on you, or you can stand on a machine. The one that we have, you stand on a machine. They're going to put a current through you for like 15 seconds. You don't feel it. This is just barely happening. And it's actually seeing on your cell membrane. Your cell membrane has a charge. It's 25 millivolts. Okay. Now you need that charge on your cell to actually be able to bring light into the cell, to bring nutrients in, to bring oxygen in. And the more that cell membrane can hold a charge, the healthier you are. And the lower it goes, the less healthy you're going to be. So in a hospital setting, when they look at your phase angle, they can predict 13 weeks out to the week you're going to die. Now, obviously in our office, we're not doing that. But I can guarantee you when someone's phase angle gets low, I tend to use the number 4.5. I've seen it in other research. 4.5 is a number where that can actually start changing. When you hit that 4.5 number, you're running into serious health conditions. And I'll make a bet that the number of people who are going to the hospital who are not doing well in COVID, or those who are in the ICU or may even be dying, their phase angle is going to be very, very low. And I've seen this time and time again. We can look at things like cancer, serious illness, everything like that. When that phase angle drops, that means that your cell membrane is losing its ability to hold a charge. And that goes back to the exercise. And we did a really cool experiment using this machine on 20 people who were rowing. We did 20 people, we measured before they exercised. They went and rowed for 45 minutes out on Lake Washington, came back, and we measured their phase angle right after that. It went up on most people by like 10 to 20%, which is huge. Wow. And that's what exercise does. It changes how your body functions, the water inside your cell. And when you exercise, you get more of the structured water.
Oh.
So I thought that your last person had the question about, your hot yoga, that's a great way. It could be anything that you like to do, whether it's, running or doing anything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm just showing people your video, obviously, of this machine that you're talking about. And just heads up, everyone, the link for Dr. Ramaley's YouTube channel is in the description of the video, as is the link to his practice. So if you want to book him for your child's birthday party or whatever it is that you'd like to, just kidding. He does remote counseling.
Yeah, I don't have any ponies.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll give you I have the ponies, so you can borrow them if you need. Yeah, I'm sad I never got to try this thing while I was still in Seattle. I'm also, I don't know, maybe I would have found out I was going to die in 5 weeks, so maybe it's better off that I didn't know. But I do remember hearing Dr. Zach Bush talk about, as a cancer researcher, how he would say that he was kind of talking, maybe he was talking about the exact same thing, because
he was.
Okay, because I remember him saying that, like, if you were at a certain number in their analysis, that whatever the treatment they did, you were still probably going to die at the same time, that because of whatever was wrong with you on these.
He was using, I don't want to quote him, but he was using the 4.5.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, it doesn't mean when you go that number, I'm not saying that you're going to die the next week. I'm not even going to try to imply you're going to, I just want to make it clear. But it's kind of like, do you want to wait for your idiot light on the dashboard to say you're out of oil and your engine just froze up? Or you want to do something about it beforehand. So the cool thing is you can do this test, but then you can go back and do a lifestyle modification. And then you can go back and then see, well, did my phase angle go up? Do I have more intracellular water? And you can measure those things. So it's like a very, very functional way to measure your vitality, like how vital is your body. So this is sometimes even better than some lab tests, because it's giving you it's that day, like, what is your body doing? And it is very cool to watch.
North Star 92 has thoughts on breathing and heart rate variance. So we talk about breathing, and then also on that note, because I've been reading up on Wim Hof, the Iceman, as they call him.
Yeah.
And so he's really into breathing, but also the cold shower thing, which I have now worked my way up to 45 seconds of very cold water, especially for a Floridian. Can you talk about both of those things?
Yeah, so I think the breathing is extremely important. I love that method. I also do cold showers, and I think the breathing is really important because let's go back and take pH for a second. So this always leads to another tangent, but a really good test you want to do too is check your saliva. You can go out and buy these little pH strips, and you can test your pH right on your tongue. Now it's not exact, but it's pretty clear. You want your pH on your tongue to be about 7.2. So that means that's your alkaline. Your blood is 7.25. So you kind of want your saliva to match that too. Now you can do urine and make it much more sophisticated. Just a simple test, just check your saliva and see your pH. The more alkaline, or the closer you are to 7.2, the healthier you are. Now, if you're a little acidic, go down and do some breathing. Do some deep breathing, do the Wim Hof method, do any of those things, and then go back and check your pH 15 minutes later. And that amount of time that you're breathing, you're doing exchange of basically electrons, you're changing the acid alkaline base in your body, and you'll see that your pH has gone up, that you will have become more alkaline just by doing some deep breathing. So, and that makes your body function better. So that's where I think the breathing is really important. And the heart rate variance, I think, is really important too. These are all the things you can do, but heart rate variance is really fun. You can just, I don't know if this person is talking about whether they have a machine or whatever. It's basically kind of, again, measuring the vitality. It's just not your pulse, but it's kind of measuring how well your heart recovers in between beats, like what's happening there. So it's different than an EKG machine. But But there's some really cool apps you can just get for free. One is called Sweetbeat. I'm not getting any money from them. That's just the one that I use. I think it's called Sweetbeat, but it's a free app. And then you just put a little like monitor on around your chest that you can get for 20, $30 around your wrist, and it will measure your heart rate variance. So if you just take it throughout the day, it might be like, they use these numbers, maybe like 50%. You really want to try to get up, if you can get your heart rate variance up to like 70 or 80% at different times throughout the day, that's really good. It means that your heart is getting stronger.
Do people in high sun areas have lower disease rates than people with longer winters?
I would say traditionally, yes. The Romans, the Greeks, the Germans, everybody used to have what they call these sort of like, sunbathing areas where they would go sunbathe to make them healthier. So now that, let's say someone lives in Florida, can they get more sun? I would say yes, the more sun, the less disease you'll have. I think that's actually pretty well established. But what is everybody told now? So I don't think anybody living in Florida gets any more sun than anybody living in North Dakota. I shouldn't say sun, excuse me, gets their exposure to sun. Because what's everybody doing? They're wearing hats, they're clothing, they're wearing lotions, and they don't really get the sun, and they're still sitting inside their buildings and their homes. And I'm only saying that because that's what I've seen happen in the last few years of my own practice. People say, hey, I was down in like, Southern California for 2 weeks, and I'm looking, there's not like a bit of tan on their skin. And they said, well, what happened? They said, well, I wear long sleeve clothes, I wear a hat, I put suntan lotion everywhere I go. So essentially, it doesn't matter if they're in Florida, the equator, or if they're in North Dakota, you have to go out and get sun.
Where's the level of too much sun related to skin cancer?
That's a complicated question, but simply put, I think it has to do with not how much, but the appropriate dose at the appropriate time. So I don't think theoretically, there's no such thing as kind of like tanning too much. There is a thing, burning too much, and you do not want to burn. And so, if that makes sense. So
burning's bad.
Burning is bad. You can go get an app on your phone. It's called Vitamin D Minder. And you can put in your height, your weight, your skin, and it measures which latitude you're on. And it will actually tell you how long you should be out in the sun before you burn.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I tell people, if you're worried about your face, ears, wear a hat. You don't have to have your whole body exposed. You just want to get a little bit of sun, and you want to tan a little bit. We're talking about white people. If someone has darker skin, they need to go out even more because they don't have the capacity to produce as much vitamin D and get the benefit from that.
Okay, well, since you brought up an app, I figured we could go into Bluetooth. So I'm going to play this.
Who took that picture?
I think I did.
Okay.
But I'm going to play this real fast so people can see. It's just 48 seconds of Dr. Ramaley discussing Bluetooth. So here we go, Dave.
Electromagnetic radiation.
Oh, can you hear? Hang on. I can't hear it. Can you hear it?
I can hear it's a little low, but
it's low. Let me see if I can pump up the volume here.
Electromagnetic radiation is all around us, and it comes from cell phones and from wireless Bluetooth devices like wireless earbuds. And the earbuds, I see people wear them all the time in the gym, everywhere else, 24 hours a day almost. And I want to show you on a meter what is happening to you. So as you can see and as you can hear with my cell phone right next to the acoustimeter, it is off the chart. This is not good for any human. And when we have the earbuds next to it, I want to show you what happens. That is what your wireless earbuds are still doing. Okay, this is like having two cell phones strapped to your head all day long. Come on, even you know that's not good for your brain. It's creating way too much inflammation. So don't use them.
Okay, so tell us about that.
There's all those degrees at work using duct tape on my head.
And I did shoot that video, so don't blame Dr. Ramaley, blame the creative director. Though I do believe that taping the cell phones to your head was your idea.
That was my idea. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I think I have gotten Lynn, my husband, to wear the actual like these if he is gonna listen to or watch something in bed. Because he was just like going to sleep and falling asleep with the Bluetooth stuff. And I'm like, if you want to do it on your brain, fine, but your head is a little too close for comfort for me. So unless you want me to put tinfoil in between us, you're going to need to go back and get now. And I'm sure that there's still issues with all this stuff, but yeah, let's talk about this for a second, because I think it's something a lot of people may not necessarily, I mean, maybe my audience may, but I don't think most people, I think we're very focused on convenience. And so it's like, oh, if it's convenient, you know, it means it's good. You know, there's no string and I don't have to worry about my phone. And there's so many things now that you can do Bluetooth, not just your AirPods, but all kinds of devices you can have in your house that are, so it feels like there's like an onslaught of it. So let's take apart that video a little bit and talk about it.
Okay, well, we could do a whole nother hour lecture on this, right? Yes. Let me just give a couple simple solutions, right? So the thing is that you want to stay away. So Bluetooth one, you saw in that video, maybe it was a little bit hard to see entirely in that video, but when you're using your AirPods, any Bluetooth, it literally is the same as putting the cell phone next to your head. Okay, now so I was trying to show in a meter, we're using an objective measurement, and there is no difference. So if you feel comfortable putting a cell phone next to your head for an hour while you're at the gym on a bike and strapped literally inside of your ear on both sides, then that's what you're doing. So do you think that's good or bad? I'll leave that up to you. I would say most people think that's probably not a good idea. The simple solution is go back to the old wired things. Now you're still drawing some electromagnetic stuff from your cell phone. So this is what I do. I download my music. You can download a podcast, whatever you want, and then I just put my phone on airplane mode. And then I use the wired device to not use the Bluetooth, but use a wired device to my head so I can listen to it. So I can go to the gym and do all that. You can pretty much do everything you're doing. Just don't use the AirPods. Don't use your Bluetooth device, and just download whatever you're listening to.
That's the way we used to do it. We used to have an iPod.
Right, exactly. Right? I saw one of those the other day in our house.
I was just looking at some old pictures, and 12 years ago or whenever it was that I went to graduate school, I was looking at this picture of my setup for how I used to study, and there was my little iPod right there, you know.
Yeah.
So I need to start doing that, because I run with music and I run with my cell phone, and I've recently been like, why am I putting my, because I don't like even like putting it on my hip for a ton of time. I don't know. I feel like, listen, people should know about me that, and I don't know what you do in this situation, but I don't even go through the millimeter wave detector at the airport, because I don't want to be the guinea pig. Like, I'm that risk averse when it comes to being tested on. And my go-to whenever TSA tells me that I'm nuts for doing the pat down, which they love to do every single time. Like, it's like the first time, like the first time that like no one's ever said it to me before. They think they're the first one who's brought up, there's more in your cell phone and whatever. I always just ask them, because they have no response. I go, do you know where your chicken comes from that you eat? They're like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, and then I just respond, listen, if you don't even know where the food you eat comes from, don't tell me about the federal government and these machines. I don't even want to hear it, because like, get back to me when you know where your chicken comes from. And they're always like, okay,
I love that response.
Just because I'm not going to argue with them about that, but I will argue that they know very little probably about most things. And so to just say like, everything about this equipment, I think is a little ridiculous. I'm not saying I know everything about it. I'm just saying I don't want to be the test case. So yeah, I always do the pat down. And which is funny, because Lynn always goes through, and so they're like, well, they must have a healthy marriage. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Can I just go back to the EMF thing for one real quick second too? Two things that other people can do, which are going to be very controversial. If you have an Alexa or a Dot or whatever, you've got to get rid of that. I cannot tell you the number of cases. I can't divulge too much information. Just to let you know, in the last month, I've seen, well, let's say the last 2 months, I have seen 2 people with seizures. We put the Alexa in the room. We tested it. There's a way what we kind of test for it in our room. Let me back up. When I start going through their history, what happened? When did they start developing seizures? It was a certain age or whatever. We have them go home, remove the Alexa or their Dot, hook up their computer to an Ethernet. Almost no seizures. Now, I'm not saying it's happening with everybody who has a seizure is because of Alexa, or everybody who has Alexa is going to get a seizure. But what I am saying is that stuff is not healthy for you no matter what. I know everybody loves their Alexa, or whatever the device is, they want to turn the lights on and off. I'm just telling you, it is messing with your electromagnetic system in your body. And the other thing is, it is doing that, but Well, I would just stick with that for right now. If you can remove that. Now, if it means that you're going to have a party when you turn your Alexa on for a couple hours, no big deal. I mean, we still have to live in this world, but do you want to leave that device on all day long? I had someone come in who had migraines for a solid year, 2 MRIs, CAT scans, drugs, everything, a migraine every single day for a year. He comes in, talk to him, what happened, what happened, what happened. Then we finally figured out, well, I got this Alexa a year ago. And I noticed like 2 days later, my headache started. So, okay, well, turn your Alexa off, get rid of it. Don't even turn it off, unplug it. You have to unplug it. The next day he calls and he goes, I don't know how you figured this out. But he goes, my migraines are gone.
Wow.
Never had one since.
Well,
And
okay.
so,
So
no,
does that include like Lynn got, I keep throwing him under the bus. I'm definitely the tinfoil hat wearer in the relationship, but he got this thing that's like for the lights that you can turn the living room lights on and off with your cell phone. Okay. I've been unplugging it. I hope he's paying attention right now.
No.
I hope he is paying attention.
Yeah,
I just don't want the CIA to be spying on me and knowing when I'm up and not. That's like one of my main reasons for taking it out. And honestly, not even just on that vein, like some of the best sort of national surveillance security reporters out there would never have Alexa for those reasons, actually, not just the health reasons, but because they don't want to be mined for data.
Well, if we do another one on the EMF, when people are in our clinic, I'll turn that meter on and I'll hold it up. I'm blanking on the name of that device, not the Alexa, but the thing that you plug into the outlet, which basically turns your lights on and off and everything. If you take the meter and I get up next to that thing will literally go off to the top, and that has a much wider distance than even like your cell phone or your computer, because it's looking for the signal all the time, and so you're just living in this kind of bath of really bad electromagnetic stuff.
Okay, before you go, because I know that you got to run, I wanted to show this last video on this topic. You sent me this video of your computer, right? So I'm just going to play it. So what are we seeing here?
So you're looking at my Google. Okay, there we go. So you look at the meter. So on the left, you see that number going up and down.
Yep.
Don't pay attention to the one on the right. Just want to look. The one on the right is the average. The one on the left is showing you what's happening right then and there. So it might be a little bit hard to see. It's kind of in that middle area. There's a band right there. It's a little bit on the lower end. I am measuring my computer. Now, I don't have Ethernet. This is on a Wi-Fi right now. So I'm trying to film and touch at the same time. So I'm not like that slow. But so now I just put this. I think that's what's happening. Now, if you see it spike up, I just took it off airplane mode. That's what I had it on. And now you'll see it kind of jump up and down a little bit there.
Okay.
So now you see that number go up. So that's why I say use an Ethernet on your computer. Now you see it spiking. That's picking up. That's my computer picking up our Wi-Fi signal. Now I wanted to show you as I back up here a little bit. You'll see it go down. It goes down a little bit.
So I always tell people, chest pain just watching.
What's that?
It's giving me chest pain just watching this.
But so the point of that is that distance from cellular devices is not linear. Let me go back and explain this. It's exponential. So the further you move back from your computer, you get a huge difference in that. So I'm like kind of where my chair was right there.
Yeah, I'm kind of already backing away now.
So if you're using Wi-Fi, try to stay at least 3 feet from your computer. Now I'm just taking, what am I doing here?
Well, how do you do that? Because you're going to look like our kid trying to walk. We call her Franken baby.
So I just put it back on airplane mode. So now you saw it drop down. So now,
okay.
Hopefully we mopped our floors. So as we go through, now I'm walking towards our router.
Okay. Wow.
Now you start to see it go up.
Yeah. Oh, dang.
Now
it's like turn around. Oh, geez, turn around, Dave. Don't do it.
Yeah. So this is off the chart. It goes off between what my meter can even measure. But the point of this is that, people unplug their routers at night, and it's probably not a bad idea. It's only, that's what I'm going to show you how far away do you have to get from your router for that to go down.
Yeah.
So I'm probably at about 10 or 15 feet right now. And see how that goes down? So if you're 10 or 15 feet away from your router, you're probably doing okay. But if you're sitting next to your router all day on your computer, that is not good.
Okay, so that's another. All right. Well, is there anything else before we go, Dave, that you feel like you'd like to discuss? Because you've definitely graced us with a lot of information. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, God, where's the hope in all of it?
Oh, there's a ton of hope. That's what I was trying to say. Simple things, going outside, using the Ethernet down, put your phone on airplane mode, drink healthy water, exercise. I mean, those things have a profound effect. I cannot tell you the number of times people think it gets very complicated. I say people all day long, since COVID, I've seen thousands of people, or this, I'd say we've had thousands of visits. And, what we can change is don't make it overwhelming. In my book, okay, this is not another plug. In my book, you have to read it. Pick one thing, just pick one thing in a week and say, maybe I'm just going to drink filtered water. That is so cool. That will have a big effect. Maybe I'm going to throw out my crappy vegetable oils and start using more like avocado oil, olive oil, different things like that. Maybe I'm just going to go outside for 2 minutes every hour. Maybe I'll take a walk for 15 minutes today. I'll go outside more often. All of those things have a profound effect. You don't have to do everything today. And, I don't live a perfect life. My wife can tell you that. We get out, and it's true for any human, right? We just try to do what you can. So there is hope. Just pick one thing.
As long as you don't live with us and have this thing on the top of your roof, which we're still trying to figure out what is going on here. I'm going to spend the rest of the time that we're at this rental in the middle of nowhere figuring out what this is. I mean, I know what it is, but what exactly it's doing to me. But that was part of the reason that we had the live stream start late today. One last quick question, Dave, before you go, because somebody was asking, there's Chaka, my buddy. I know. What is healthy water? Somebody asked that. Did you talk about that specifically, what it means? Because you were talking about better water versus, and I don't think a lot of people consider that.
So I'd keep it simple. If you're in a municipality, if you're in a city and you're on water, you want to get rid of the fluoride and you want to get rid of all the other pollutants. So like any of those Brita filters, a cartridge, those are great. The fluoride in the water is what really messes with that structured water and your ability to produce energy. So again, I'm not giving a plug for any company. Two things I would look at, I would get what's called a zero water filter or a Berkey water filter with a fluoride filter. They're super inexpensive. The zero water is like $20. You can buy it anywhere. And that gets rid of the fluoride and all the other toxins in the water. So you're starting at least with a healthy water. If you can buy spring water, that's even better. You can have it delivered so you're not going through a bunch of plastic. That's another really good way to do it. And I think another way to get structured water is through a company called, it's through a bottle of water called Rewire. I have some personal investment in that, so I hardly ever mention that because I don't feel like that's very ethical. But if you want to, it's called Rewire, and there's some other waters. I think there's one called Divina, so I'll give you that one also. So there are some other waters that make structured water. But again, you can make the structured water inside yourself by exercise and light.
We'll have to have you back on and talk about more stuff because now people are asking about fluoride, and someone else was saying, is bottled water okay? And then someone else said, I feel very guilty for setting up Wi-Fi for a living, but you shouldn't.
We also we got to live too, right? We got to make a living, and
do you want to do one quick sentence on fluoride and then go?
Yeah, I should probably go.
Okay.
Because I'm going outside to go
okay.
for a run and play pickleball.
Okay. If you're interested in, go ahead.
No. So the one thing about fluoride is, so water has a charge on it. So water is, just by the nature of it, it has an electric charge. What fluoride does, and people are going to, you're some wacko who hates fluoride and blah, blah, blah. It's plot and everything. I didn't even want to get into that. I just want to just make it very simple. Fluoride will basically make your water non-electrical. It decreases the charge on water. So if it decreases the charge, if we are 99% water by molecules. So we are water. So why would you want to drink something that is going to take the charge off of your water and lower your ability to produce energy? And that can be a whole nother topic, how fluoride interacts with water. But that's what it does. And there's no reason really why we need fluoride. And that could be a whole nother topic. I can go through graphs and show you everybody else in the world who doesn't use fluoride and those who do, whatever. But the fluoride literally will slow down the energy in your body.
Okay. we'll leave it there. Everybody, if you want to know more about Dr. Ramaley and Seattle Natural Health, there are links in the description. You can also go to his YouTube channel and watch his videos where he puts 2 cell phones on the sides of his head. And don't forget also links in the description for other platforms you can watch my stuff in case I get booted for talking about EMF and Alexa and whatnot, who's probably spying on me in some other way through that huge antenna on the top of my roof. And I will see you all next time. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Allison.
Bye, Dave.